Well, we've just barely entered our second month of the year, but many are already complaining of being mentally drained and feeling burnt out. Experts say this could be the result of being in a constant state of high alert. They say it's likely symptoms of pandemic fatigue, and it takes its toll on your energy levels over a prolonged period. To help us with some coping mechanisms, we're joined by Abdurahman Kenny from Pharma Dynamics. A very good morning to you. You know, I think we can all relate to pandemic fatigue or COVID fatigue, whatever you want to call it. Just explain to me what exactly that is.
Yeah, so pandemic fatigue is a state of being worn out by the recommended precautions and restrictions relating to a pandemic, often due to the length of the restrictions and the lack of activities one can engage in. And if we think about why that is, we as South Africans, like you said, have been in a constant state of high alert during the pandemic, with the constant fear of the potential dangers around us, putting us in a state of fight or flight. Now, this is a mechanism that can be very useful in dealing with stressful situations in the short term, but this pandemic has been going on for a while now. It's almost a year. And that can be extremely draining, both physically and mentally as well.
And another major adjustment that we've had to make is, you know, the move away from meetings, face-to-face meetings, or going to classes for students. And is this taking more of a toll mentally than, you know, the face-to-face encounters that we're used to?
Yes, definitely. Especially for those individuals who are all day in video call meetings. It has become a part of our daily lives now, and it has been shown to be more mentally draining than face-to-face meetings. And if we think about why that is, usually in a face-to-face conversation, we would subconsciously pick up on non-verbal cues like body language, etc. So on these video calls, our brains basically need to fill in the gaps in order to make sense of the conversation and add context to the conversation. So our brain basically needs to work extra hard, and that also contributes to our increased levels of fatigue at the end of the day.
Yeah, and as much as we need to be, you know, keeping abreast of things all the time in terms of what's happening with COVID-19, you know, over-information can be problematic too.
Yes, exactly. We do live in the information age, so we can be bombarded with pandemic news through various media sources, and this can be overwhelming as well, like you mentioned. But one of the ways that we can combat this is to try and limit our media consumption, and also make sure that the sources that we do get our information from is credible and reliable.
All right, so let's take a look at some of the other coping mechanisms that you have for anyone who is feeling that burnout.
Yeah, so there are many things that one can do in order to combat these symptoms, but they can all be summarized as trying to live a healthy and balanced lifestyle despite the restrictions that we currently find ourselves in. Self-care is very important. And what that means is we all have our responsibilities in terms of our family life, our work life, but it is important for us to make time for ourselves as well, and not feel guilty about it. So this can be through exercise, through reading, meditation, etc. But the bottom line is to make sure that you check in with yourself in order to make sure that you are mentally okay on a daily basis.
Yeah, and if you are struggling, Abdurahman, just very lastly from me, if you are struggling and you are feeling that COVID fatigue and slightly feeling like you're constantly jet lagged, where can you go for help, and how can Pharma Dynamics assist?
Firstly, I would like to say that it's important for us to be kind to ourselves. And if you're not as productive and motivated as you used to be, it is okay. We're all living through a time of heightened anxiety and uncertainty. But if your symptoms do persist for weeks on end, then it might be time to speak to a professional. So we as Pharma Dynamics do have a toll-free helpline, which is manned by SADAC counselors, SADAC being the South African Depression and Anxiety Group. and they are available from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week. And the helpline, if I can just share it with everyone, is 0800 205 026. And that is a toll-free helpline that is available to the public.
Yeah, I guess it is very important to constantly keep checking in with yourself to make sure that you are still coping. Thank you very much. That was Abdurahman Kenny from Pharma Dynamics.